when I started, the convention was to name patch files trac underscore the number, okay? Now there's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing. You've just done something new. You need to go onto trac and make a new ticket and get a number. And then you can come back and name your file and put your file back on trac, and we'll go look at trac in a minute. But some people just put the number. I think that makes it a little bit confusing when I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I'm reviewing and I just have numbers and I can't remember what they're about. So I like a number, 1, 2, 3, 4. I put the trac underscore because I always have, and that keeps my directory organized and nobody's ever complained. I like dashes, Python likes underscores. Name it .patch, okay? When you put it up on trac, if you put anything but patch and somebody clicks on it, they don't get the pretty red-green view. So trac relies on .patch, meaning let's look at this in a form that makes sense. So, and I can't seem to remember the why. Okay. So we can look at that file. It's not going to surprise you at all. Looks like what we were just looking at, getting spit out into command line. Okay? So that is now that you can email that to somebody, you can post that wherever. The natural place is on trac. But that is your contribution to Sage encapsulated there in that file in a form that other people can use it automatically. I was thinking, oh yeah, so I have a nice, I'm on Ubuntu. This is actually a KDE routine called compare. Everything KDE begins with a K, and it's a patch viewer. This is always my little quality check because I always screw up. You don't want to put up a screwed up patch. I've done this. Put up a screwed up patch, have William Stein get interested in it, look at it, realize it's screwed up, tell you it's screwed up, and never come back again to look at it ever again. You just sort of lost them, and it'll happen with other people too. Okay, so just if somebody's going to review your stuff, make sure you put something up there that isn't broken from the get-go. And so I always use compare to take a look at my patch. So the color scheme is different, although I think sort of a light red is the other color, but blues and reds. And if you've got a patch that touches a lot of files, it's kind of nice. You can look up here and see that the files you thought it was involved in are involved. Here we only have one file. This is the way life used to be. This is the way life is now. And it's a nice kind of view. You've got, there was nothing here, this skinny little line, and now this has been inserted. So it's just a nice visual way. It's a nice way to look at other people's patches, but all you are getting is context. So if you don't understand the routine, you may not understand the changes because you're only seeing the 2 or 3 or 4 lines on either side. You can get a sense of the magnitude of a patch, you can get a sense of what's going on, you can get a sense of how many files and which files are getting messed with. I like to keep and I've taken to calling them version, this, that, or the other. I like to have a recent copy of Sage that I don't touch. Or if I do touch it, I just load patches to test, and when I'm done testing, I get rid of them. I probably should have showed you testing. I'll do that in a minute. In a patch viewer like this, in compare, there's a place, so right now I just gave it the patch file. That's why it only has the context. It doesn't know much. With compare, I can say, take matrix 1 from my beautiful untouched version of Sage, and take matrix 1 that I just patched with this guy's contributions on a ticket and compare them for me. And that will give me the whole code, so I can read the whole code and I can see where things are coming or going, and I can get a real good sense of what's going on. So that's sometimes a good way to get a feel for a ticket if it's big and complicated and you're not sure what's happening. But like I said, right now I'm just doing quality control. I'm just making sure that this really looks like what I thought I was doing, and often it is not, and that's the way I catch it. Let me just do this so we can, just so you know the whole sort of drill. You should test your stuff. You should test your stuff widely at first unless you're really sure you know what you're doing, okay? I had a student change some code, and then way off in the doc testing code, there was a little test routine that was figuring out, it would look for a string and then figure out what line number it was in. The code he had changed the line numbers. And then the doc testing code had a test and he broke that test. So he thought he was working on matrices, and he was, and something totally unrelated, just because he picked the absolute wrong function to be working on, broke. So when you get started, do that. Now, so Sage / matrix / matrix1 .pyx. Okay. So that's just going to test that file. So I'm pretty confident that, well, I'm not confident. There may be other routines getting columns, and I will have broken some tests other places. But a good, well, I'm just sort of, oh, I did break something. Yeah, I broke the tests, okay. I guess that's what we would expect. There's lots of errors, and several, okay. So here is, that's dot columns. Dot columns. I guess I only broke column stuff. Okay. So there's all these little tests, and they're expecting certain output, and now all that output has been messed up with hello Sage days. All right, let's go back. I'll go back and talk a little bit about posting things to trac. Are there questions on, oh, let me show you one thing. So let's do this. Let's look at our, while we're here. Okay, there's where we are, right? The 4 patches that we were reviewing, and the silly little patch we just built. Okay, watch this. HG, Q pop. Let's just pop. Okay, so my editor's yelling at me again. And let's look at our, everything's popped. Okay. HGQ remove. Sage days. Ready? Gone. Like it never happened. Okay? You shouldn't be, you should never, if you've got a rudimentary capability with mercurial queues, so long as you queue new before you start, you can do anything you want. Save it in a patch, pop it, remove it, you're back to the beginning. So you shouldn't ever be bashful about trying something. Right, track. Okay, so I got rid of, oh, so I still have that patch, right? I got my silly little patch over in temp. I need to log in. So there's certain, you can't, we're just looking right now because I'm not logged in, so there's certain options aren't available to me without being logged in. Every time I type in my trac password, I remember the day I got a trac account. Oh geez, I'm really gonna do this. Attachments, I'm not logged in yet, sorry. Anybody know any jokes? Questions while we're waiting? I don't know why. Let's try this again. My wireless is not big good today. I'm just going to walk you through this. I don't seem to have my internet connection working, but I don't think it's critical to what we're doing. If I was logged in, here are all the attachments. There may be more attachments that are actually relevant. So there may be false starts, there may be tests, you know, just an example of a bug or something that are sitting here. But you should edit this section up here. I'll show you how to do that. You should edit this section up here because eventually the release manager will require that. This is the list of just sort of discussion and commentary about what's going on. Okay? And there's a fair amount going on here. Pong will be here in a couple days. This, I think, is his first contribution. So, I wish I could get into that. All right. Right on now. Let's try it. Try logging in. Yeah, I'm logged in. All right. Down at the very bottom, there is this modify ticket. Okay, so if you wanted to just start a new comment rather than reply, you can do that. And there's a whole wiki syntax, and you can read the help on here. Triple single quotes gets you bold. If you do camel case, it turns into a link, and it likely is a link to something you don't want. Put an exclamation point in front of it. There's a whole lot of little, you put one dot, and you indent, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, you get a list. So you can look at any one of these. So like if I was, where did I have a list? Here's a list right here, okay? So if I was to reply to this, I won't. I'll kill it once I get there. You can look, in the reply, all this stuff is quoted. You can see it's 1 dot, and that rendered as number 1, number 2. So you can, and so this was a little discussion about how to format documentation. So I wanted a dot and a colon, and I didn't want it to get mixed up and turned into something else. So those back ticks were sort of protecting it as verbatim text. So you can peek at other people's stuff. When you get a trac account, make sure you sign up to have trac send you email. Any ticket you comment on, any ticket you put yourself in the CC field on with your username, you will get mail for the life of that ticket. And the text, I view my email as text, so I see all this markup in my email. When you post an attachment, that does not generate an email. So I had a student who was working on some stuff, and he'd been doing this for a while, and everything was going fine, but he just posted a new patch and didn't do anything else, and the reviewer didn't know about it because no email went out. So if you post a patch and you're expecting somebody to look at it, make a comment. I just posted a patch to do X, Y, Z. All right, let's make sure I don't mix this up. Let's just back up out of that. I think if I go back, I'll be okay. All right. So you can start a new comment down here, and I guess there's a link to the wiki formatting that'll help you with that. So there's a bunch, you got to know your Python, but then there's a whole routine for the documentation. You got to make the documentation formatter happy. You have to follow the SAGE rules for what should be in there and in what order. And then when you post on the ticket, there's sort of this whole wiki format and a little culture of what you do and don't do on a ticket. So there's a whole lot of little things that go into doing a round trip on something. Okay, so modify ticket. You're probably not going to change the title unless something dramatically changes. The description is usually when it is first created and is sort of rarely edited. Things are added to it. Triple braces will get you a huge chunk of verbatim stuff. There is, Keisha, what do you do to get like Python formatting?
You put a hash bang with the word Python on the first line.
Hash and then an exclamation point and
the word Python.
The word Python. And then anything you put there will get formatted with Python code and color-coded and indented properly and all that good stuff. So if you actually got
indented actually, but it'll just be color-coded.
Okay.
It's only for syntax highlighting.
You put in the indentation. But
yep.
Yeah, but if you paste it in, it'll look good, okay? So this is where you put the list of relevant patches that actually need to be used and in which order. And to make them links, you do this attachment in the square brackets. And to make apply nice and bold, that's the triple quotes. So there's a little bit of formatting there. When you first make a ticket, pick whether it's a bug, something new, or neither of the other two. I usually start everything out as minor, unless it's really a bug that I'm really sure is really biting people. I'm not sure it's up to me ever to say critical or blocker, but and trivial is sometimes trivial, like I've done some one-character patches. They were necessary. So, safe side, just say minor. Somebody else might bump it up for you if they feel like it. there are all these areas here. So look through that list and try and figure out what area of mathematics, or whether you are, like there's a documentation area. Because some people, I'm gonna go in to the reports, and if I feel like doing a review, the first place I'm gonna look is linear algebra. So I'm instead of looking at all the open tickets that need review, I'm gonna first filter on linear algebra, and then maybe graph theory. And usually by then I've found something to do. So try and put it in the right category, and you'll attract the right people who have an interest. These are actual usernames in trac, so most places I'm Beezer, but on trac I'm Rob Beezer. And the way you figure that out is you go to the very home page. So I'm going to open the home page for trac in a new tab, if it's going to come up. I don't know why I'm so slow. We'll come back and see if that. There's a big list of all the developers and their usernames. So you know, don't guess at that, but go and look. If you, it is okay to suggest, to put people's names in there as a way of suggesting, I think you might be somebody who would be interested in reviewing this. And those people are free to totally ignore it and not even respond at all, okay? But they are going to get email on the life of the ticket, and they may just want to know what's going on. They might be interested. So again, Kevin and I are working together this summer, and I told Kevin yesterday, put my name on any ticket you make this summer. Put me in there. I need to see what's going on and be apprised of what's happening. I almost never put keywords in here. When you actually put up a patch, put your real name in there. So that's going to go in release notes and things like that. And you're just sort of going to get bumped out by the release manager these days if you don't. And if you see that somebody hasn't done it, feel free. You know, if you're the reviewer, feel free to put the author's name in. Just sort of make life easy. Do the best you can to make life easy for the release manager. That's a big job. And don't annoy them by forgetting some of these little details. And then, of course, reviewers. Dependencies. So if you're doing a bunch of stuff, so Kevin and I are both working on some things that might be unrelated, and Kevin may do something and post it and then move on to something else and it hasn't been reviewed, but it depends on what he just did. If there is a previous ticket that needs to be applied before yours can be, your new one can be applied, put that in the dependencies field. Use the hash in front of tickets. You'll see people write that way on IRC in different places. IRC is two, does the patch, does the bot now pick up 2 hash symbols in IRC? Mm-hmm. So if you're on IRC, put 2 hash symbols in front of a ticket, and you will get a link to that ticket.
So that's handy.
It's very handy, and I've seen people do it just because they're lazy. Right? That somebody's talking about a ticket, you know, they'll see a discussion of a ticket, and then somebody will just put 2 hash and the ticket number, because they know they're going to get a URL and they can click on the URL. Right?
Yeah,
right.
Or even people who start talking about a ticket will know that other people are too lazy to actually go find a ticket. So the first time they say the ticket number, they'll just work it into their sentence with 2 hashes.
Right. Yeah, okay. In trac, anywhere you write in trac pretty much, 1 hash and the ticket number becomes a link. And what's really nice is that once that ticket is closed, you get a strike through. And is the coloring live?
Yeah, now we have coloring on the track too, since 2 weeks ago.
Bug days a couple weeks ago up in Stevens Pass, the hash and the number, they'll now be colored. So like green is positive review, and you get a strike through when it's reviewed, and red is brand new or needs work, or
red is needs work, or needs
right.
info.
Yeah. So over time, I think we'll all start to recognize the colors, and then that's really nice. You can look and see just what state. If somebody says this needs these 10 dependencies and none of them are finished yet, you might say, oh, that's a bit much. Once you have a patch, so I put things up that are half-baked sometimes just to have a copy of them, so when I come to Sage Days, I know where to find them. But once something is ready for people to look at, you mark it as needs review down here. When somebody reviews it, what you're hoping they'll do is say positive review. That's what you're hoping for. That is, you put something up for review, somebody else has looked at it and said, yeah, that looks good, this is ready to go into Sage, positive review. And then you're sort of done, and then the release manager takes over. More likely, there's going to be some comments, and certainly if something is not right and really needs to be changed, something major, then that reviewer will send it back to needs work. There is no such thing in Sage as negative review. That never happens, it just needs work. So you may, go back and forth, and if you fix whatever needs work, then you flip it back to need review, and that's the clue to the reviewer that it's time to come back and have another look. And once it goes to positive review, that's when you should go back and make sure all those fields are cleaned up and the whole list of tickets to apply is correct. Get everything in order, because the release manager will sometimes be around quite quickly. He's quite diligent these days on staying on top of stuff. The assigned and unassigned, really, I don't think anything happens there. There's some extra buttons down there. Some of the buttons will not be available. Sometimes you can't go straight from one state to another. You have to go to sort of an intermediate state. You can't go from new to positive review. You got to go from new to needs review to positive review. Some things of that sort. What am I forgetting? If you knew, it would. Kevin, what did I forget?
This is everything you told me yesterday.
Everything I told you yesterday. It took 2 hours yesterday.
Did it?
Yes. 2.5.
I thought it took 1.
No. Oh, you were late. You were late coming.
Yeah.
No. I guess something to do, if anybody was interested later in the week, would be actually writing documentation. So how do you fill in the documentation part? And there's oholo.net or something like that. There's this place that automatically analyzes repositories like Mercurial repositories, and it's pretty funny. I think I'd been doing Sage for a year and a half, and I was credited with 16 man-months of work or something crazy like that. It was like I hadn't done that much. It was just a totally inaccurate estimate. I put it in my file for promotion anyway. But so my code is like 80% documentation and 19% Python and 1% tech or something silly like that. So you can write a lot of documentation. I like to do it. I like to get it right. But there's a whole language for that, a whole sort of procedure to get that right. And you do sage-doc build and then typically reference an HTML. And there's a way to build the documentation, and you got to go find the right file and review that. And that's part of putting up a ticket is having the right pieces of documentation and then having it all format correctly. That's really the only piece you need to have the whole package. Questions? Parting shots?
Where do I report bugs for Sage Notebook? The GitHub repository?
Yeah, the GitHub repository.
Or the trac?
GitHub repository.
Yeah, so the notebook, in my understanding, correct me, but the notebook there's been an intentional effort to separate the notebook from Sage as much as possible, so that presumably the notebook could be used for other things, or people could write alternative notebooks. They're trying to maintain a separation between those two. So I would do all that on the GitHub. Unless it's, there are bits and pieces in the Sage library that affect how Sage works when it's in the notebook versus how it works when it's at the command line. So those are, there will be small changes that need to go in the Sage library to get the two to match up. But hopefully they would be generic enough to be compatible with somebody else's idea of the notebook.